career paths do these history majors or history minors take? Well, usually they'll go into being a history professor or like even a history teacher in like middle and high school. There are some that go to the museum archivist where they obviously get through all the museum archives and they're in charge of that whole area. And some even go and become lawyers because, learning about the judicial system and the other government places that you need to know about is all like can get you there if that's where you want to go with your life. And it's always important to know that, especially if you're going to go into the legal system. And some just become authors where you can go into historical fiction or autobiographies or your own biography, which is always super great, and you can make a career out of really anything, not anything, but like all those important things for history. And like history is not limited in what people would think. There's plenty of careers that you probably didn't even think of that you could have. History is arguably one of the most important disciplines here at NC State. Now, you don't really meet many history majors anymore, but that does not hinder the importance of history and what it means to not just state, but to everybody in society as a whole. The history discipline is a part of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, which also has many other disciplines as well, but this one is very unique in its own way. It pushes students to think deeper and to have more critical thinking in their lives. And not only does it do that, but it also encourages students to be more knowledgeable citizens wherever they are residing in. And it also, not only that, but it also encourages students to learn more about the complexities of their society and where they're at.
So for our deeper dive option, out of all the professors and all of the faculty members that go through the history department, we decided to pick on Dr. Vincent from a recommendation from Grace, who you saw from earlier in this video. So she teaches the world from 1750, and I thought it would be a really great option, especially for someone who teaches all types of students, not just history majors, but how to appeal to every student here at NC State that has to take a history course, or at least for the general education requirements. Also, I realized when I looked into her that she actually has a master's degree here at NC State. So a lot of the questions I asked her in the interview talked about how, her experience here at NC State, not just from a professor, but from a master's student, and how, the history department really appealed to her, and not only just for working here, but also as being a student here, and from that experience and perspective. And a lot of the questions that I asked her was just, what makes the history department special? What would you say to a history major? Why would anyone pick history? And so a lot of the questions that I asked her, which she did ask, and it's in the written spotlight on all the responses and all of the things that she answered. But I wanted to pick the 3 most interesting things, and so here we go. So the 3 most interesting points that we learned from the interview is, the first one is that a lot of the majors that especially take her classes and take a lot of history courses in general are actually poli-sci, political science majors. And so I found it very interesting because, political science, you associate that a lot with the government and, wanting to be a politician or whatnot. But what she told me was that a lot of them want to know the history of the structure of how the government works and how it was originated and formed. And so that's why a lot of political science majors take history courses. Another point that I learned is that history is very much a storytelling major. So when we talk about how history is important and how it's something that everyone needs to know, you don't want to be the kid that goes into a street interview and they don't know the first president. And so it's very important for history majors to tell that story. It's very important to know the context and the story behind it. And another thing that she was telling me about is how history majors, they preserve oral history. So whether it be recording, whether it be by writing, whatever, just preserving stories from generation to generation, it's very important because those stories can be forgotten, they can be gone, and we don't know where they go, and they can be very important to the structure of our society and the structure of individuals and whatnot. And so I found that very interesting. And one last thing that I found very interesting as in the history department is that it's very welcoming, and especially to new students. As I mentioned before, she got her master's degree here at NC State, and so when she was choosing all of the schools here at Raleigh, especially Duke and Carolina, who are our enemies, and she talked about how Carolina was just very unwelcoming, very mean, and Duke was very welcoming, but you know, that price, that tuition, you know? And so when she came here to NC State, she thought, you know, we get this stigma of being a very STEM, technology, innovative school. And so she thought there's nothing really here, I guess, in regards to the history department. And so when she learned that the history department actually has a bunch of courses in which she wanted to do, for example, she wanted to learn about ancient history, she was very surprised, and our department was very welcoming to her. They answered a lot of her questions, they gave time to her, and that was very, you know, very, I guess that solidified her decision in coming here to NC State.
Conclusion: society needs historians to be able to understand the past and the stories that are told from it. We can't know what we know without understanding what happened in the past. For example, a student can't understand the importance of school if we don't understand the past and why it is here. Knowing things is important, and history is within every aspect of these important facts. We choose to interview Professor Kimberly Vincent from the History Department, and she taught us how making an informed decision is key and important to anything we do. Our History Department isn't just full of opportunities, but allows us to learn the complexity of history. Some careers for history majors to go within are teaching history, becoming professors, working in museums, becoming lawyers, and even some go as far as writing a biography on themselves. And more, like Tara Wistover, who has a PhD in intellectual history, and we are reading a class. Conclusion.